Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome to our neck of the woods. How's you doing today?
All right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and post the link in chat. If you'd like to come on up, you're welcome to. Um, so I titled this, "How do we know anything?" Right? We all have different points of reference, and we already know and have seen just in our lifetimes alone that they changed history at their whim. They're doing it now. They're trying to change it yet again. And well, frankly, I would love to hear our true history.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe, B Dog, good to see you. So I guess the conversation's really about point of reference. What do you think?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
So yeah, so point of reference. So what's your point of reference? Lots of people have the same points of reference right now, and many people have different points of reference depending on how they were raised, what culture they live in, what country they come from. Your histories are all going to be different. They're going to be presented differently in each and every country. That alone can tell you that it's not factual, right? Um, hey, Frank. Um, so uh, we all know history from our own point of reference. We all believe things from our own points of reference. Meanwhile, um, not many, a very, very small percentage of people who look into to trying to find the truth of our histories. And yeah, we saw a title about that this morning. I didn't really want to watch anything that was going to hurt animals. I can't stand that.
Hello, Robert.
Hey, brother. So, so yeah. So, what's your point of reference? And are you awake enough to truly open your eyes and look deeper and find other points of reference to maybe come closer to a truth? Um, y'all know we've been watching this fella, this Indian fella, Praveen Mohan or something like that. I think his name is. You can find him on YouTube. He does some fascinating work, and he does it all from the point of the ancient temples in India and Cambodia and Thailand, and he sure tied a lot of stuff together for us.
Hey, love hug.
That goes right in line with the old hidden energy grids, um, the hidden history of Tartaria. Uh, yeah, the temple guy. Yeah, B Dog.
Yeah.
That dude is amazing, right? And everything that we've watched of his in the last couple days has been like boom, 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 connections, more connections made. And I don't know, B Dog, did you get in on our 5 hour video that we all watched that we were going to have a discussion about? It was called The Lost History of Flat Earth. It's not as flat Earth. It's not about flat Earth as much as it is about the lost history that's been taken from us. So, I mean, if you're going into it thinking that, you're not going to pick up the information that's being given. Vito, you should totally check that out. E War Anon. I think his channel got taken down. Hey, Robert, if you could, or Bonnie, if you guys, one of you two could grab that link for the 5 hour documentary and pop it in chat in case these good folks want to pick it up and check it out. You're more than welcome to. It's really, really good. It's like a 5 hour documentary film. We had to break it down in sections. I want to go back and watch it again, but we'll have to break it down in sections. So,
good to see you.
Hey, LH. It is very interesting. And this guy probably Mohan, I want to say his name.
It's like to it too.
He
But it's
unintentionally looks
It-
right. Because I know that's not his intent. He's trying to bring us the wisdom that the ancients that built these temples had. And when he's uncovering the wisdom that these ancients had in these temples and the depictions, and he's breaking it down. They knew all about genetics. They knew all about electricity. They knew how to make mercury into a solid state. It is amazing, right? The Heart of Krishna. Check that one out. That's a really good one. Yeah, B-Dog, we watch him.
Oh,
And we watch him on his Celtic Guitar channel. I think it's the same guy though.
our signal might go in and out. It's still kind of cloudy and overcast here.
We can always refresh
Right.
if you guys want to wait a minute.
As long as everybody else is, you guys go by or messed up.
Oh, didn't do that.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
All right, give it a moment. There we go.
Here we are.
Is that better?
We'll go along with it.
Testing,
If we're still
testing, 1,
choppy in
2.
the next 5 minutes, let us know, and then we can do it real quick.
Hey, you guys want to giggle? I'm just picking. Are we better though? Does this sound better? I guess they don't know if
Better
we can't
now?
if we don't talk.
All right. Okie dokie. That's all that matters. Bye, bye,
Right
bye.
on.
5B5.
CLH giggled. She's giggling.
All right, cool.
All right, so I don't know. Anybody want to come up and talk about like points of reference and stuff? Anything like that? I mean, I've always been a weird one. I've always thought there was something to the myths, right? Like you can't have that many mythologies and not have a kernel of truth in there somewhere. So I've always looked for that. In anything I've studied, I've always looked for the truth, that kernel, so that I could disseminate between what was. Hey Vic, what was real and what was not. So here, hey Vic, what was real and what was not. So we hear your chimes.
And I even tied them up. How's everybody?
We're good. Wind chimes are gorgeous. They're beautiful.
You can see it's windy like crazy here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you finally your storms are finally moving in. Ours finally moved along.
Yeah.
Hello, Monty.
Thank you for sending them down.
We didn't do it. You better talk to Robert. You better talk to Robert. Your storms came from Robert this time.
How you doing, Victor?
Well, Robert's location. Well, at least you're not getting snow dumped on you. There are parts of Northern California that got snow dumped on them.
No.
Some parts.
That's how I lost my overhang.
Oh, that snowstorm?
Yes.
Oh, my Lord.
It's not used to that much weight around here, and it collapsed.
How are you doing today, little lady?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Y'all doing okay?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I really
It's clearing up
think
around here now. Still overcast,
it's damp
damp,
and cold.
cool, but
It's cold.
starting to dry up.
It's
Yeah.
not that cold yet, but damp and cold makes everything cold. It's
Yes.
cold.
I can kind of feel the dampness in the air today.
Yeah, a lot of precipitation moving around in the United States.
I still think I'm going
So
for a
let's
drive later.
right on.
Show y'all a little. Look for it later.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right.
we got family that keeps us up half the night anymore, and then we have late mornings, and afternoons become morning.
Yep.
I'm blaming you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just picking on you, hun. It was completely voluntary
Tuesday runs
position.
to Thursday. Thursday to next Wednesday.
I appreciate the late night chats because
Oh, I do.
I can't.
Oh,
And so do we.
I can't go to sleep early like. Victor. I didn't know he was over here.
I love Robert. Hey, Dorinda. Good to see you.
Hello.
So yeah, I just figured we'd maybe talk about
Thank
our
you,
points of reference and how to expand those, The more you know, the more you know. But not the surface stuff. I'm so tired of the surface stuff. I'm just like,
We live that every day.
don't bother me with it. And I know that may not be the right approach, but I certainly have days where I don't want to be bothered with it.
5 hours.
But I'm very into some of those original mysteries, like I've always been very interested in ancient cultures. For some reason, they've always drawn my attention, whether it be their stories or their art or the buildings and the pyramids that are lost in jungles and things like that. Ancient civilizations. Where did they go? Where's all their knowledge, right? Where's all their wisdom?
But have you noticed that they've been uncovering things slowly but
More
surely?
and more. Yes.
Yep.
They are
More and more.
uncovering massive amounts of information that they aren't going to be able. I don't think they're going to be able to spin it anymore. I think that the secret's going to be out of the bag, that we used to be a very advanced civilization with a lot of very natural technology, because I think the ancient civilizations actually blended science and spirituality together in a way that we don't know how to now.
True.
We were watching something on Fibonacci sequences and the golden ratio this morning, and the way it was explained, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, is in every living thing. It's in our DNA. It's in the pattern and design of a flower, the way the seeds disperse. It's in everything, right? It's in every living thing is this golden ratio. And so the way it was explained, though, I actually finally understood it. Like, I finally got it, right? And I felt like that just opened up a whole bunch of things, because I've always been interested in it. I've never quite understood how it's applied, because they can explain it in so much detail. They have entire mathematic books based on golden ratio with formulas and exercises and all that good stuff. But they weren't showing how it's applied. And this guy was showing how it was applied by our creator in every natural living form. And it was amazing. And when it was explained to me that way, I understood it. Like, I understood the significance of it. But looking at a bunch of math formulas, even though I am a math person, it didn't make it something that I could apply in everyday life. And then the temple guy, as Beto calls him, Praveen Mohan, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Um, but he does a lot of stuff, and it's all based from the the ancient India traditions. And what he does is he goes around to the different temples all over the place, and he reads the walls. He looks at the architecture. He looks at the layout. He does all that, and then he goes back to the original Sanskrit meaning of the names to show you what those names really mean and what they've been changed into, right? And it's just so fascinating for me. Yeah, I'm done sleeping, Vic. I'm all done with sleeping. I'm ready to roll the blanket back, uncover that free energy and those healing waters that we used to have. Why we don't even need med beds? Why would we need med beds? Can we not just set up our healing waters again? Right? Where we all have access to the healing waters, the energized waters. And even the Bible talks about the healing waters. And every myth has a pool or a spring or something with some magical healing water. And all it is water that's been energized by frequency. And our entire world, the planet as we know it, was set up in this big, beautiful, all-natural electric current grid that gave free electricity, and there was water everywhere because the water, they would energize and charge the water, and the water carried the current. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. That's the future I hope we get it to go into, is uncovering the truth of our past and being able to set those types of civilizations back up. Because how beautiful would that be? Right?
Yes. But I don't know what you're talking about. So if I have some sulfur springs near me, is that a good source or
it could be? Well, it depends on what's going on with you. Because a lot of the healing waters were considered a heavy water, right? So if you were healthy and you drank the water, you could get sick. But if you were sick and you drank the water, you would be healed. So
okay,
I think that it comes down to more of the alkalizing of our bodies, more, maintaining the right pH balance for the body that we have, right?
Okay.
And then we
in it.
Well, yeah, a lot of people were bathed in those waters too.
Yeah, they were bathed in them. Just depended, I think, how it drew out the toxins out of your body, how sick you were. So if you were really sick, it was actually healthier for you. It might draw the toxins out, through your feet, your palms sweating. You know what I mean? So they would bathe you in it. I'm not too sure, but if you were healthy, it was a downfall. So it's depending on what the water was in. So true, Victor. I agree.
I'm gonna have to get a pen and paper. I always forget to bring them to y'all because y'all talk about things that I want to write down. And last night I missed something really important because I didn't have a pen and paper. And
what did you miss?
In the private chat.
Oh.
And there's no way to go back to that, is there?
As long as you don't close your window, you can end your broadcast. But as long as you don't close the window, that chat will stay there until you close the window.
Well,
once you close the window, you can't get it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Write something down. Don't close the window. Right. You can end your broadcast, but don't close the window and go get your pen and paper and write stuff down. And links or whatever.
You could instead of saying, "Oh, I lost it and I didn't have the opportunity," reach out and email Tara at Liberty Warrior Nation. Right, Tara at Liberty Warrior Nation. mojo.com
Okay.
Mojo.
or whatever, go and do it to Tara, and then ask her to forward your information to him,
That's a good idea.
and then
Okay.
yeah, and let him know that you didn't get it written down in time, and for next time, right?
Yes.
But I'm sure she would be willing to do that. She would not have an issue doing that.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Pappy,
Hey, Pappy, how are you
good to
today?
see you.
You know what? Something that Victor said about school. I noticed a lot of people, it wasn't a problem learning. It was a boredom. It was like, because I know when I was in high school, history and science, and we had a teacher, and I know I talk slow because I want to make sure that I say the right words before I speak. But they would sit there and I mean, you could count 1,000 ums while they were talking. So you're sitting there falling asleep, and even if it wasn't true or not, you still missed it. And
Yeah,
I didn't
that
start
might be a
learning
blessing,
history. Yeah. And
because
so
you ended up being a free thinker.
and then when you get out of school, that's when you really start looking at things and researching and doing your own thing. And I think you learn a whole lot more than you were ever taught in school. And
Yeah.
the homeschooling people, I think they get that. And that's why homeschooling is good, because you're using those things that you have learned
Yeah.
since school.
When she told us she was interested in Atlantis and Lemuria, she's the one that got us looking into this stuff. We just
Mhm.
went further. But when she started talking about Atlantis and Lemuria when she was very young, I always encouraged her in school. Go, okay, how about today we'll do a documentary, and you can write something about it, right? You can tell me one thing you learned. And so we do it like that, and then it keeps her interested. Now she's 10, she can't be interested in anything school right now, but we try not to make it too schooly.
Yeah.
We try to make school more about just
Life.
just living than to make it
She gets
school wise, because
She
she
likes it.
cannot stand to be told that she has to sit there and do this one thing over and over again. The repetition of it, she doesn't care for.
Yes.
She's like, Mom, I
She'll
already
do it,
learned
but-
this. I'm like, I know you already learned it, but I know. Hey, farmer son, good to see you.
What we have to explain to her is that you still have to show it, so you have to write it out. You got to do it a couple times.
Oh.
And,
And my biggest problem was fractions,
yeah.
because we moved around so much. I missed it every year. And so it was after I got out of school, and I say I went to college. It was a business school, more kind of like a trade school, I guess. But before that, I had to go to this other area and just sit there on a computer with fractions. And well, by then I was cooking, and so of course it was easier because you learn fractions cooking.
Uh-huh.
People don't realize that. And so
Yeah.
it was like, well, this is simple, but school, it didn't
Practical
look way
use.
on my report card.
Right. But once you learn something and how to apply it, that's the other problem I think that schools have, is they're not showing children how to apply any of the knowledge they're giving them. Here's information.
Hey,
You just
farmer.
need to learn this. We're not going to tell you how to use it, but you have to learn it. And so
Yes.
if they don't even know what it's used for, they don't have a practical application for it, they're less likely to retain it.
Well, now it's all about the testing, and you have to have so many kids pass that test so you can get the funding, and so that's all they concentrate on. And
Hmm.
it's sad that there's no home economics. um, Shop, I guess shop is more like welding and um, agriculture. Around here it is. They don't
Really?
they don't take you out there to a car and show you the things we were shown with the car. This is how you
Yeah.
change a tire. This is how you check your oil. This is how you change your oil. It, so the kids aren't getting the basic what they need to know in
Right.
life, like we were talking about last night, kind of. And
Yeah.
they need that.
Teach them how to balance a checkbook.
Yep. That's another one.
Yes.
All right, you taught them how to count money. Now tell them how to spend it wisely and how to hold some back for bills.
Try and get your kid at the store to count your change back to you. They don't
That
have
too.
a clue. That computer has
They
to
don't.
tell them how much your change is.
That's sad.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I mean. The kids are being shoved a whole bunch of information, but they're not being taught a lot of practicality, and you can only get practicality from everyday use. So cooking, mixing and measuring,
Sewing.
anything like that. Sewing, yeah, any of that stuff is
Yeah.
practical use. That's information they can use.
Yeah.
And it all comes out right in the end. I mean, I promise it does.
Yeah, Ohio. I know up in Canton, when I came to Canton, they had restaurant management, but they got rid of home economics. They got rid of, and of course, home economics was your sewing, your cooking, and all your stuff. And they were slowly getting rid of auto mechanics and farming and the agricultural, along with horticultural. It was all slowly being gotten rid of. If you wanted to do that stuff,
Wow.
then you had to move to a different city. That's where the programs were.
You see, shop up here in the north, in Ohio, shop classes learning how to use and work with wood.
Wood.
It's all
tools,
woodworking.
You know.
It's a woodworking class, basically. That's
Yeah.
what shop class is here. Because I took
Ours-
shop and home.
Ours does wood also, but we do. I don't think they have it in the city, but we have FFA and FHA, and
Yeah.
so the kids do learn. They learn a lot about agriculture, and Laura was in FFA, and she did bugs, the study of bugs, whatever the heck that's called.
Entomology.
Yes,
I think
that's
it's entomology.
it. And so she could identify all the bugs. And then my granddaughter, she did Creed, and so that was speeches, and kind of surprised me because she's real shy and quiet, but a lot of kids show their animals here. The stock show is a big thing.
Yeah, we have 4-H and FFA, the Young Farmers
Future Farmers of
Association
America.
and the Future
Yep.
Farmers of America.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
we have a lot of those because, of course, we're agricultural. We're an agricultural state.
Yes.
We also have a lot of animal husbandry in this
Yeah.
state.
Yep.
We're a huge dairy. We're huge producers of pork and beef and chicken, and
Chicken. Yep.
we're huge producers of soybeans. Actually, the state of Ohio alone was the top producer for soybeans for the entire country of China for several years in a row.
Hey, Celtic.
Wow.
Just, yeah. So, I mean, Ohio is its own little like bubble in that aspect, because it does have a lot of natural resources all around us. And yeah, the best draft horses. That's right.
Yes, we do.
We have draft horses.
Some of them.
There's a lot of horse farms around here. They train horses for buggy and cart use.
Yeah.
They train
is
horses for the fields. We've got, the big dairies. We've got gigantic chicken farms everywhere. We've got alpaca farms for cloth making. So I mean, it's a very well-rounded area, and I think that a lot of the people that live in the state of Ohio don't realize the natural resources we have all around us.
We have abundance.
I mean, do you know there's a piece of an ice glacier here in Ohio still? And that Venus flytraps grow around it? Isn't that crazy?
Yes. And we train our horses for cutting, mostly on the ranches, our show. And the girls were real involved in that too. Barrel racing, the rodeos, that's another big thing here. My kids never got into that though.
Oh no?
Not the rodeos. They preferred they would do trail rides for people that would come out of the cities, and
Yeah, I enjoy doing the trail rides I worked for the YMCA camp up in Akron for a summer.
Yeah. Well, we've always had an infatuation with horses. I would love to see a draft horse.
Oh, King. Oh man. That horse is so big and beautiful. We have pictures of him somewhere. I'm sure we do. But I love draft horses. They're just beautiful, beautiful animals. They really are. The other really funny thing about, we had talked about that farm before, and we're telling you guys about the biggest draft horse. And I think Big Ben actually held the world record for some time. He has since passed away. Now they have what's his name? King.
We got him. I've got him in this one.
King something, and he wasn't even as big as Ben, but he's huge. I mean, I could put Rain. Well, I couldn't put Rain on my shoulders now, but
okay.
Yeah,
I'll back it off here in a second, but I'll try to give me a second to coordinate my. Oh, you know what? Hold on. You know what I'll do? I'll do this even better.
Yeah, give us 1 minute.
Oh, I did that wrong. My bad.
But anyway, they also have these humongous cows on that farm. I mean, these cows tower above even really tall people. I mean, I know I'm pretty short. I'm like 5'1.5", but I've never seen cows that big anywhere I've lived. So it's nice to know that there are so many available resources locally, and that's like, I always think about, and I never used to think about that when I was young and roaming around and, learning new places and moving around and seeing what life was about. I never thought about what area I was in, that, was it a self-sustaining area? And as I got older, I started thinking more and more about that. And I'm glad I did, because it puts me a wee bit ahead of the game. I believe, taking that into consideration wherever you're located or are going to locate, to be able to find the natural resources around you and utilize them to the best of your ability.
Yes, we're going to need our natural resources that are available to us close by. And
Yes.
I can see that.
Yeah. And it's going to come down to that. And people have been pushing community. But how many times have you stopped and talked to the farmer that you buy the fresh eggs from on the side of the road? Actually talk to them, set up a rapport, find out if they have goats. Do they milk their goats? Do they make cheese? Do they make butter? Will they sell that to you? Will they trade it for labor? All those kinds of things. Will they trade it for goods? Right? Do they know? And the other thing is, even just stopping by and buying a dozen eggs off somebody on the side of the road because there's a sign out in front of their house. Ask them who they know that has dairy cows. Ask them who they know that has this, that, and the other, because really that's how you set up those connections, right?
Yep.
And it can start with one small thing. I'm trying to get you the picture of this. It's Hershey's King Buck, I think. Yeah, King Buck, that was his name.
Seems like I've seen a picture of that or something.
I think Robert pulled up pictures of him one day, or somebody did that was up here.
Okay.
Doesn't want to send now.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to send.
A breed of cattle as tall as humans. Well, I know some of these. I don't know what breed these cows were that are there, but they have these. And it's not all their cows. Most of their cows are just normal sized cows, but there are a couple cows that are like literally ginormous. They're huge. I've never seen cows that big. They're bigger than average humans and even tall humans. Yeah, it's a big guy. Hershey's King Buck.
Yeah, I haven't seen one like that. I've mostly been around Herefords and Brahmas, though. Not really.
That one will show her how big he is.
Out at the ranch, there's some
Either one.
buffalo.
This,
Oh,
and then
go
I'll
ahead.
show this.
Okay. All right, hold on. We're going to show you. We're going to share our screen.
Okay.
It's not a very good picture.
No.
See the one with the sign on it.
Do y'all have buffalo that still just roam free anywhere up north?
No,
Like,
there are
not
buffalo
roam free.
farms, though, established in Ohio, or bison. I should say bison farms. They do have buffalo on those farms, but Ohio was all Native American land at one point, and there are several
Second.
Native American cities, towns, and things like that that have stayed intact. So,
Just a second.
where was I going with this? Ask me the question again, hon.
I was just wondering if y'all had any buffalo roaming free. Our national park
Okay.
has some buffalo, but
Yeah, we don't have them roaming free. There are farms for bison and buffalo down in some of the old rural hill areas. Malvern, I know for certain there's one, and they have a festival every year as well.
and longhorns I don't even go near them. They are mean. I have
We
not
have a couple farms of longhorns. We have
really.
a couple, and I've even seen the Highland longhorn long red hair. The Highland cows. I don't remember what they're called. The ones from Scotland.
Is it like a yak?
Yeah, they kind of look like a yak, but they're not yaks. They're actually cows.
Oh,
They have
okay.
real long, heavy red hair, and they're almost like a longhorn, like as far as their horns are.
Yeah.
But not quite. But we have tons of different cattle breeds and stuff all over Ohio. I mean, it's insane. It's like a little world of its own when you even if you just drive around looking at the different farms, everybody has different types of sheep and goats and cattle,
Wow.
different chickens. I mean, and some people specialize in the rare birds and some people specialize in the rare this or that or the other, but there's all manner of of different breeds of cattle here. And I used to have there's a longhorn cattle farm on one of my routes that I used to do when I used to do papers, and they were gorgeous, but I knew that if the fence was down not to go on that road.
Yep.
No. But yeah, I mean, just amazing.
It is. We used to have mini bikes when I was young, and we'd go riding around the ranch that subdivided, and it was all fun and games until a bull started chasing you.
Right? Oh man. And I can't see chat, guys. I'll respond to anybody there in a minute.
1 second.
Oh, there's one that finally showed up.
Yeah. Just give me a second.
Belgian backstraps. Oreo cows. Yeah, we got Oreo cows. Water buffalo. Now, what's the difference between a water buffalo? Can anybody tell me what is the difference between buffaloes and bison? Because I know there is a difference, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. Is it the size of the animal or the size of the herd, maybe?
I don't know.
It's just something, kind of interesting, right? They're a very similar animal, but there's a difference.
Yeah. And I think B-Dog's in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Canada still has buffalo, I believe. I don't know. I don't live there, but that'd be interesting to see.
Yes.
But I know they've got acres and acres and acres and hills and Rocky Mountain area and everything down around that bison and buffalo farm down there. And it is a beautiful sight to watch those cows and bulls run, because with buffalo and bison, I know they are still called cows and bulls. So I'm not making a reference to cattle. I'm making a reference to male and female.
Well, there's
Oh. Bison are pure buffalo mixed with cow. So bison are kind of like mules, right? Because isn't a mule a mix between a horse and a donkey?
Yes.
And they just didn't want to call it a honky? What if that was the original meaning of a honky? Anybody know that? That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Up at Alberta has wild bison still. Gigi.
Hey.
Okay.
All right. Give us 1 second. We'll get to show you King Buck.
It's not what we want to do. We just want to share a screen.
Yes.
Not yet, right? Well, yes, we
Yes.
can, because it's separate already. No, it's not. I have to pull it out of there. Where's that? Okay.
Is this
Go there.
is
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
stuff in the museum now that you're fixing to show us? The
No, we
or
want
it's
no.
still
This is
alive?
actually
This is the draft horse.
that we were
Right.
talking about.
Is it still alive or
Oh yeah, this
Yeah.
is King Buck, which is Ben's uh successor when Ben passed.
okay?
Big Ben though, that's me.
Can you guys see it?
No,
You guys see that?
y'all see anything?
Not yet. All right. I think it's.
No.
Be right back.
Yep.
Yep. We're having a problem here. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Well,
Having a hard time here. All right. Be right back. And just not.
Jeff and Heather, y'all are froze up. Uh-oh. Can y'all hear me? Oh, no. Oh, they just threw me up here alone. So, what do y'all want to talk about? Oh, there they are.
Yep. Okay. Try this again now.
Y'all had really good service last night. I was amazed.
Yeah, I know. I was so happy.
Yep,
Cancel
it's
that.
been good today too. Seems
Okay. Now. Yeah, we're kind of lucky here. And there we go. Now can you see it? Hey, there we go.
so that is King Buck. That's their
wow.
large draft horse, and he is not even as big as Big Ben was.
Yeah. He's two or three hands smaller. Short.
Isn't he gorgeous?
He is beautiful. I cannot even imagine. Look at his head almost hitting the rafters.
Oh, and
Big Ben did.
yeah.
Big Ben hit
did.
the rafters.
Yeah. He was huge.
They had special saddle made for him.
Ben was about this tall, and his whole head, oh my. He could eat 2 or 3 carrots at a time.
That is amazing. I would love to see it. The biggest horse.
19.3 hands high.
How many?
19.3.
19.3.
Yep.
I think
His weight, 3,126 pounds.
wow.
And
I
Big
think the
Ben was
tallest
23 or 24 hands high. That's how the Big Ben was.
God.
Yeah. He was huge.
I don't know how
Amazing.
tall it was. Frisians are kind of tall, and we've worked with them, but never measured one
Yeah.
to see how tall they were. But yeah, that's a big horse.
Yeah.
Well, Gigi,
Beautiful.
he's a draft horse. He pulls. Usually, he pulls the plows.
Yeah, the big
So they cut their plow drafts they keep them short hair so
Yeah, the
that
mane
their
is
hair
short.
and their mane and their tail
Don't get tangled
get
in the reins.
tangled in the reins and the harnesses, and those they're magnificent creatures. But when like Big Ben was an anomaly, and he would not be able to be teamed with any other draft horses because he was too big, and so they couldn't work in he couldn't work in tandem with the other draft horses because he was almost 3 times their size. And so,
Right.
they wouldn't step in, so they would use them for other things. But
Yeah.
all the animals on the Amish farms around here, they're all working animals.
They're all workhorses.
Even their cart horses are they have their own job. You know what I mean? They have their own thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, but they have some magnificent horses there. So, and like I said, they had a custom saddle made for Big Ben, and I think it was 3 or 4 seats on the saddle. That's how big Big Ben was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was big.
Yeah, and
Well,
they do
and
leather working and everything there too. So, yeah,
that's why there's so many different breeds, because they each are built for certain jobs, or
Yeah.
that's how I guess we have raised them to be built for different jobs. Because they didn't just come that way.
right.
And from different parts of the world too.
And I mean, if you think
Yes.
about it,
Because those Mustangs up there on Aztec Island, they're not very big. But you go, where is it? There's another part of the world where there's some Mustangs, and they're completely different looking. Their stature is different. Everything.
Yeah.
if we think about the animal kingdom, right? Like seahorses, male and female to germinate the eggs, but the male carries the eggs and the female hunts for food while the male germinates the eggs.
Penguins too. Don't they?
Penguins, right? The mom lays the egg, the
And
dad keeps the egg warm and takes care of the chick. Mom goes out and gets all the fish and stuff to bring back for the family. But if we look at nature, like foxes and wolves, and like every animal in that pack or that group has its own job, right? And
Yes.
so we also, being mammals, why can't we also see that we each have our own part, right? Like if we could see the parallels, right? I find it so fascinating that for everything we know what we know amounts to a drop of nothing in the river of life, right? In the big ocean of everything, it amounts to nothing. Barely a ripple. The drop of information that we as a species at this point in time could drop into that.
Right. But we need to learn from the animals too. If you're
Yeah.
stuck out
That's
in
what
the
our
woods,
ancestors did. Our
Yes.
ancestors, they weren't worshiping animals. They were saying, look what this animal does. How could this
What it
benefit
does
us? Right?
right?
Egypt,
If you're
those
lost
guys.
in the woods, what are you going to do? You're going to follow an animal because eventually it's going to lead you to water.
Exactly. And water leads everywhere, right?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. And that's the thing, and people look back at some of these ancient religions and mythologies and things.
I'll see you later, Crystal. Thanks for coming.
Have a great day, hon.
Brenda, you rock too.
Um,
And Gigi.
so if we were to consider that, though, and we weren't there. We don't know if they were worshiping them or just noting a behavior that they did. You see, I've been watching this guy, this Praven Mohan fella, and he made some very interesting observations about these animals that had been carved on these pillars and into little figurines and stuff. The meditating monkey. And he was like, well, why would they do that? And then you see there's this picture of this little monkey. He's just sitting there with his eyes closed, his hands on his legs, and he's very still. And then all of a sudden, he turns his head and looks at you. And you're like, wow. Well, there's a lesson, you know. So our ancestors were learning these lessons, perhaps, from animals, taking the lessons that we're talking about now. And they were including them in their daily life, in their practices, in order to be closer to source energy, right? So I don't think they were worshiping these animals at all. They were simply honoring that animal's place in the cosmos and what it could teach us, right? Because we all have a place.
Right.
So I got to thinking about that, and I thought, oh my gosh, that makes really good sense. I mean, that makes more sense to me than they would worship a monkey or a cat or a cow, right? Because why? And then I got to thinking, it's not about the monkey or the cat or the cow. It's about the behaviors they display throughout their lives, right? Cows are usually very mosey along, enjoy the day, stop and smell the sweetgrass. You know what I mean? Not a care in the world, right? But you scare them and get them into a state of fear, and the whole group gets a mob mentality and stampedes.
Yep.
So I think if we can look to nature and find, because here's my thing, and I'm talking about nature. I'm not talking about the domesticated animals, the new breeds that these people are coming up with, crossbreed and everything. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about nature. I'm talking about Creator put it here for a reason. What lessons can we learn from it, right? What lessons do we learn from the birds? We learn to watch certain birds for weather patterns, right? Oh, the whatever, the sparrows are taking off. A storm's coming in. The woolly bears are dark this year. It's going to be a long winter. The cows are laying down. It's going to rain. The maple leaves are flipped over. It's going to rain. They're asking for water. That's, and those are things that we're taught growing up from our parents, our grandparents, and everybody calls them old wives' tales. Oh, that's an old wives' tale. That's an old farmer saying. Well, these people, I think, had more knowledge than anybody even can consider putting to use at this point. But my point is, why aren't we looking back into those truths? There was truth there. It was said differently than we expect it to be spoken today, but there was truth because they knew how to observe the animal kingdom to know things about what was going to happen in their daily lives, to know when to plant their crops, to know when not to plant their crops. If there's going to be 3 buckets or 3 feet of water coming in, you're certainly not going to sow seed, right? So,
and they knew when snow was coming. My grandmother lived by the Farmer's Almanac. That's when we planted. That's when she lived by it.
Yeah. And the Farmer's Almanac, their planting guides are run the same way planting guides were run in ancient times, not on a solar calendar, but rather on the lunar calendar. And if you don't believe me, look it up. The Farmer's Almanac does all of its planting tips and tricks, and all that is all revolving around the lunar cycles. the lunar calendar.
Yep.
So there is some importance to that. And you guys know, you've heard me talk about, us reclaiming our symbols and stuff. And there are a lot of examples I could give, but would not be widely accepted. But the one that you can give that everybody recognizes, because even children know, right, is the rainbow. How they keep trying to steal our rainbow and demonize our rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
When the rainbow, I think, is probably the purest signifier of the light of the divine source, right? Because
Yep.
you got to think a rainbow is created through a prism, through that light reflecting in a prism. So, if you think about that, that makes that like one of the holiest symbols ever. Well, why wouldn't they try to take it? And then if you can recognize that as a truth, right? Because we all see that happening today, right? Right now as we are living.
Yes.
And it's been going on for a bit. We have to take that back. Now, if you can realize this and you're not asking what other symbols did they do this with, then maybe it's time to ask that question. Because not everything that they have demonized or tried to demonize is actually evil. Most of it is rooted in divine creator. Most of it is sacred.
Yes.
And it was sacred to our ancestors. But how will you know if you are unwilling to ask those questions? So I always give the rainbow as an example because it's the most prominent, proliferate example of today that we can do like right now. Just like I always give the equity and equality. We're watching them change that right in front of us, right? It is amazing to me how people can see one thing and not ask questions about other things. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm.
I think we need to be
Right.
like healthy dose of questioning. Well, I question all the stories they tell me now. Quite frankly, any story coming out of the mouth of a politician, a historian, even a teacher at this point, in this new day and age, nope, I don't believe it. I need to look deeper. I need to find something either that solidifies, repudiates, or both in order to look closer to the truth. And then when you think I should stop and you think you've given me all the answers, I'm going to actually look deeper than that. Because history does repeat itself. All right, let's think about that. If history repeats itself, it's not only the bad history that repeats itself, it's going to be good history that repeats itself as well, right? All things come full circle.
Yes. Hope so.
So, yeah. That to me seems like an epic understatement, right? All things come full circle. And I think what was it you yesterday that was saying about the pendulum is swinging?
No, it wasn't me.
Well, whoever had said that yesterday, that was a very good analogy. And it kind of stuck with me a little bit. That pendulum is swinging. But guess where it's going, right? Let's hope it gets some hang time. It's coming right back over to the light side. So, I don't know. I never thought I was passionate about history. It's the one subject that I just did not do well in. And I didn't do well in because I didn't believe a lot of it. And because it was contradictory to other things that I had learned. And I thought, of all the histories in all the world, none of them tell you the truth. But then I found that, yes, you can still find the truth, but you have to look in multiple places and you have to discern those old tales. And then you also, I think, I mean, if I had any ability in the world, I would want to speak and read. I would want to have the ability to speak and read any language. I think that would, if they said you could have a superpower today, Heather, what would it be? I would want to speak and read. I would want to speak, understand, and read, be able to read any language that I came across. That would be my superpower. And then I'd head right over to like India or Egypt or down in Peru.
Yep.
So if you were given the option of one superpower today, creator's going to gift you one special gift of a power of your choice. What would it be?
Me?
Mm-hmm. What would you choose?
It would be the swipe of the hand and all evil gone. Everyone on earth living as one.
Yeah.
Animals, people, everything.
But how do you, okay, can I ask you this then?
What?
How do you determine that there is only good and evil, or do you determine that there is good and bad and there is evil, but there's also ascended? Angelic, I guess. However you want to say it. How do you determine what category each gets put in?
Well, that's a good question.
Because bad people that do bad things aren't necessarily bad people. And bad people aren't necessarily evil people.
Exactly.
But good people aren't always good either, right? So
right. And that's where there's a lot of controversy too. Satan was an angel before he was cast out. And so that right there shows you anyone is capable of doing something really bad or evil. And so, yep, I see what you mean.
So, I mean, not to dog your power, because that would be a great power to have, but who would determine that? Would you determine that, or would God determine that?
It would have to be God. Like
exactly.
I said, the judge.
He would be the only one able to cast judgment. So you would be the divine executioner. You'd be the executioner of the divine. That's what you would be.
Well, now
with
saying
the
it
swipe
that
of
way,
your hand, right?
terrible.
With the swipe of your hand. Me, I would be the translator. I would love to translate. I would love to be able to look at any language or speak any language and be a great communicator. To understand spoken and written word. So I'm not just asking for the ability to translate. I would be asking for the understanding of anything that I would read or converse about or any of that.
Right.
And then what did Robert say? Anna said to heal all. So she would be a healer.
Yeah.
Gain wisdom. Robert wants to be a wise man. So what if I said, did you know that the Creator has already given us the most magnificent gifts anywhere? And did you know that it was some of our own people who agreed to let us be dumbed down so that we could not access those gifts? That it's our own people poisoning us so that we cannot access our true divine gifts?
I believe that.
So if you think about it in that way, is it not worth looking for, searching for, digging through the underbrush to find the path that leads back to those gifts? Right? And I think for me, some of that answer may lie in a previous civilization that was possibly wiped out due to natural circumstances or even human interference. Could have been any kind of interference, but wiped out for a reason. But I think that our ancestors who were able to access those gifts from the divine creator are the ones that came up with some of these temples and things that we see all over the world. It's not that these temples were built to honor different gods or any of that. That is, I believe, personally, a misconception. I think a lot of the ancient cultures came up with these different gods, or they're portrayed in stories as different aspects of the creator, right? And a lot of different mythos kind of tell the same kinds of stories. The other thing is, what if these stories were actually historical markings of maybe not even just people? I mean, who's to say we didn't have extra dimensional beings come and help, right? How many reports do we see of angels? They're from another dimension. They're from a higher dimension. So I think if we're open-minded, we don't cut anything off the table, but we don't accept everything either. We carefully sift through it, right? We carefully sift through it to find the flakes of truth and the little nuggets. And we're really lucky if we come out at the end of the day with more than just a couple of flakes of gold out of that river of panning. But I think it's much like that process. I think you have to shake and shift through a lot of things in order to get to truth. And so for me, I've got quite the historical cocktail in my pan that I am sifting around, trying to find the little nuggets and flakes of truth, right?
Okay, Pat is saying kind of what I mean better. Harmony. There you go. And then Celtic Nut, because people, stupefied people are easier to control.
Yes. And that's true. See, I used to, my answer to that question used to be, I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to heal. I wanted to be able to heal people and animals and plants. And I wanted to be able to heal anything I came in contact with. And then I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And then I was like, I don't know if I want to be able to do that. I mean, I do. I would love to be able to do that. But as the one thing I would be able to do, maybe it would be something different. Maybe it would be something more fulfilling. There will be healers. There always are, right? And I don't think we'll ever have a time without people who want to truly heal other people, other animals. Right now, we call them doctors and vets, but I'm not sure all of them are on board the right train, but I know some for sure. Some of them are, right? Some of them are there for the reasons that they're actually there for. Some of them aren't there for a career or money, or sponsorships or stocks. Some of them are actually there to help because they believe it. And those are the ones that actually do the most help, I believe, too. So, somebody hit the dislike button. That's okay. People are going to love you and people are going to dislike you all through your life. Be like a duck. Be like a duck and let it roll off your back. Be like the cow. Don't worry about it. So what? A car just went by. Moo. There's a patch of sweetgrass like 10 feet that way. I'm headed there. Right? So, yeah, their negativity means nothing.
Making lemonade out of lemons.
Exactly. And listen, we're all dealt the hand we're dealt for a reason. And chances are it's because we're strong enough to handle them, even if we don't think so when we're going through them. Chances are our shoulders are broad enough, our hearts are big enough, and our backs are slick enough that once it's all over, you know, everybody talks about the caterpillar when we talk about transition. But the caterpillar doesn't just go into a cocoon and transform. That caterpillar goes into that cocoon knowing that it has to fast before it can transform, right?
Right.
It's got to use the energy that it has stored in its body to turn into something new. And so every experience is that energy. What will you let it turn you into?
It has to shed what it's been used to all its life.
It has to become uncomfortable and unfamiliar. It has to stop walking on land and start flying in air. That's no small feat. Think about if you sprouted wings today, right?
I'd crash.
Right. We'd all crash. We'd all crash. Because what do we know? We know walking on the ground. That's what we know. We know swimming in the water. But we don't breathe the water. But if you were immediately presented with that change, you know, how do you adjust? How do you become that change? And so part of our experiences turn us into the change. But it's how we utilize the energy from the experience that really determines if we are going to grow into a hideous wart or a big strong warrior, right? So we have to think about how we use our energy. And I think even Christ was very conscious of, like, he was very aware of his thoughts. He was very aware of his words. He never spoke carelessly because he realized that thought, form, and spoken language create things. We have to really be more conscious. I think we have to be very conscious of how we feel and how we speak, and we should think before we speak. And I know that's still around. I know parents still say that, right? Think before you speak. And what's Robert say? Sit on your hands. Stop typing for a minute. Just listen. Just listen. Pappy tells you you have two eyes, you have two ears, you have one mouth. There's probably a divine reason for that. You should listen and look twice as much as you speak.
Yep.
So, yeah, exactly, Pappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we have gifts from the creator. We have tools that have been given to us. We have recorded histories that have shown us the way, only they have been sometimes intentionally misinterpreted so that it would drive us away from those truths. But if we can go back and look at them differently, with a different set of eyes, with different lessons, because, you know, as we grow and as we age, and with every consecutive lesson, we have more knowledge, right? We come out stronger, we come out wiser, we know what not to do again. Sometimes we know what to do again. It's like making your favorite bread recipe. The first 15 times you make it, you're using a recipe card or a book. And then you've done it so many times that it's a natural process for you. You know exactly what you need. You don't need the recipe anymore. You don't need the book anymore. But you have it because then you pass that on to your children or your grandchildren.
Exactly.
So, yeah, It's the same way. Those people didn't carve those things to tell us a bedtime story, right? They didn't carve those things in stone hoping that they would surpass the test of time, because it was a recipe they didn't want to forget. They did that because they were hoping that the future generations would be even more enlightened than they were. Just like we always hope more for our children than we have. We always want more for them, a better life, a better this, a better that, a loving family. We want our children's happiness, right? So in the wanting of something better for the future generations, don't you think our ancestors felt the same way, right? So all I'm saying is maybe we go back and look at all the ancient stuff, all the different ancient stuff, and find out what were they really trying to tell us. Not what we've been told they're trying to tell us, but can we go back and can we look with different eyes than we used to? I have no idea how I got on this kick. I'm sorry, you guys. Hi, Shep. Garrett, good to see you. K9. Oh, Bonnie, don't leave me hanging, hun.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not leaving you hanging. I was reading the chat. What's going on between Monty and Garrett? You two boys, stop it.
Yeah, just hug and make up already.
No, they're probably just playing around.
But I mean, I don't know. I think those are pretty valuable questions that we should ask ourselves. We can't disregard. If we know that we think that way now, how much more did they do back when they lived in communities, and it took the whole community to raise the children, right? I think they probably had more of a sense of the future generations than we do today, because we're so individualized and pocketized. You know, we're all little in our own little pockets, our own little family groups, tiny little family groups, and
and I've seen someone compare that to dadgummit, what did you just say? I need to quit looking at chat. There was something you just said, and somebody yesterday, and I don't know where it was, made it like it was it takes a village. That they made it sound like, yep, that's the government's way of thinking. And I was like,
that was not the government's way of thinking.
That was long before, because even in the Native American, in their tribes, and everybody pitched in and did something. And so that's my goal, is to get back to that. You know, I have limited ability. We were
stronger as communities, all of us.
Yeah.
The entire human race was stronger as a community.
And that's with me having limited abilities, I still know that I can sit there and be a teacher to the children, or be a laugh whenever they got a boo-boo or whatever, you know. It's just
okay. We're talking about none of the surface bullshit in the here and now. We're talking about we're talking about a lot of things, but I just want to clear this up real quick, Bonnie. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this goes way before Hillary Clinton ever thought about raising her reptilian head out of her mother's womb. Okay, any of that crap, none of it. What we're talking about is how ancient societies wanted better for even their future generations, and took the time to carve ancient knowledge and wisdom into stones to teach us what they knew. So this goes back way before that. And just like the rainbow, they corrupted that as well. They corrupted it on purpose, so we would all feel that we had to be in our little pockets, and that's where we should stay. And I truly do feel that way. And I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. I know that you guys do a lot of research on this surface stuff. My surface research stopped because I realized that it was all built on lies. And if you have a house built on a foundation of sand, it will crumble. So you have to find the foundation. And that's what I'm doing. That's what we're talking about here. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And and if you want to go back to the foundations in the Native American tribes, what was their foundation? It was the earth.
Community. Yeah.
It was there was no well, I guess the ones that lived in the mountains were they carved into the mountains with their, what do they call them? Not caves, but anyway.
I know what you're talking about, but
like
I don't have the word up front in my head right now. Sorry.
Right. Adobes. Is that it?
Adobe. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
that's the material they use to create their homes. So yeah.
Okay. But most of them, it was where they could travel at a moment's notice. So it was the teepees and
Yeah. And everybody had a part in the community. And if you don't think that makes the community stronger, then ask yourself, why did they remove the father from the home? Why did they send mothers off to work? Why did they make it such a material world that both parents couldn't be home to babysit the kids or check the kids or find out what they're teaching the kids in school because they're too busy and too tired for work?
keep raising the price of everything to make sure that both the parents have to work.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Yes.
with a brick in the wall.
All right, Shep.
That's true.
Dolmens. I've heard that before.
Shut the horse.
Yeah. Dolmens. Oh, yeah. Dolmens in Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, correct?
Hello, Raina. So
Not going to say hi?
adorable. She waved. She's so pretty.
Hey, my second favorite Jeff. How you doing today, man?
Hello, Jeff.
Either way, and no matter what culture historically, whatever type of housing, they all worked and lived and ate and did everything together as a community. And really, if you think about modern society compared to ancient society, I'm going to say the ancient society are the ones that had it, and we have let these monsters really truly destroy the entire essence of how community could raise children and how community
Humanity.
right and this exactly, they were like mini models for humanity. So if we think about that and we look back to the wisdom that these peoples and these nations left for the future, which I'm sure they wanted to be brighter than their future, just like we want our kids' futures to be brighter than ours. If we go back and look with those eyes, maybe, perhaps, possibly, we could just almost see what they were trying to tell us. Yeah, and I know that sounds far out there, but I really feel like that's the truth of it.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like and Hitler was a vehicle they used to desecrate an ancient sacred symbol that used to be used to explain the vortex of creation that came from Creator, the divine Creator, in ancient tribes. And they used that man as a tool to desecrate that symbol. So nobody will use it now, because now every time someone sees that symbol, the power of thought that goes out of their head is negative, is evil. So they used that. They did a good job of it. They're trying to do it now with our rainbow. How many other symbols have they stolen and done that to? And why aren't we taking them back? These are not accidents. Why the father isn't in the home, why there are families that are together have both parents working full-time jobs. These things are not accidents. These are intentional. These are intentional to separate you from your children, to make the school the authority, and therefore anybody, what the child perceives as a figure of authority, then has the ability to tell that child what to do, right? And this is
the government.
repeated throughout history. What's that?
I still think it's the government, not just the school. The school is run by the government. And
it all leads
children
back
are
to
in
government.
school. The government
again,
thinks
if you break it down, govern is to rule, and ment is the Latin root of mental. So to rule your mind.
yes.
Rule your mind. Government.
What you learn, how you act, everything.
Who you respect and who you don't.
Yes.
How far they can push you before you break.
And
Even
then
conspiracy theory was made up by the 3-letter C agency. So knowing is half the battle, right? When like you and I both have some conditions that prevent us doing some things. But when we know what our triggers are, we have more freedom because we can avoid those triggers, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Can I just say it? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that way. But so I have PTSD, and it prevents me a lot from going into certain places, hanging out with certain people. And I have to, like, even when I would go to my own dad's house, if he was going to have other guests there, it was like, Dad, you have to tell me, because I have to prepare for that. I have to prepare to be interactive with other people. It's not just about the space. It's about the other energy around me. You know, it's about the other people. And I don't handle that stuff well unless I've had plenty of mental preparation. And I know that about me, right? So when we think about things like that, it's all very prevalent to what goes on right now, like what's going on right now in society and how we're seeing families broken apart in society right now, be it through political differences, which, again, guys, 2 wings of the same bird. Both those wings are on the same bird. And that's all I got to say. I don't know how different the feathers really are from one side to the other. Because it's a load of horseshit, what it really is.
yes.
But road apples. It's all road apples. But we give them power by saying we want to redo this or redo that. You're implying, when you say the prefix re, when you use that prefix, it means you're going to do something again, right?
Right.
He reappeared. Well, then he appeared again. They use our language against us every day. So all we can do is learn our language to the point where they're not allowed to use it against us anymore. Everybody acknowledges, understand, right? I don't stand under you. I refuse to stand under you. I will not comply, right? We all know that. We all understand that. language is very much symbology too. And they have used it against us for centuries, not decades, centuries. Because this is not what they're doing to us now, this is not the first time it's happened. And until we realize that this is not the first time it's happened, we'll never uncover how to beat it. Right? If we can find out how they did it last time, maybe we can break the cycle for this time, is my feeling on it. Yeah, K9, great point.
We'll always be led free.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah, they're leading us right now. And most people don't even realize they're the ones that are leading us. And they're leading all sides of it. And that's what's hilarious to me when I sit back. Not hilarious as in I'm laughing at my brothers and sisters, because I am not. It's hilarious to me that they have gotten away with it for so dang long. And it's like, why didn't they see this? Why didn't they see this? Why didn't they see this? We always say, why didn't the Germans speak up and say something about those atrocities? Why didn't they see it? Right? But we know why they didn't see it. Because propaganda, because indoctrination, because they had already had their plan in place, just like they're doing now and have been doing. They already had their plan in place. And we couldn't catch up until it was almost complete.
They start subtle so you don't notice it. And
Equity.
then just keep moving it faster and faster until
They started saying the line about equality, and it was a matter of 2 days, and all of the news stations, all of the politicians they would start their statement with equality, and in 2 days' time they were starting their statement with equity. And it was that fast, and everybody accepted it.
same with
Not
democracy.
everybody. I don't understand it. Yeah, we're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. It is an entirely different thing. Just because you call it something doesn't make it so. This is why, just because they call you something doesn't make it so. Just because they're saying this one thing, it doesn't make it so. I don't care how many times they say it, they're not going to convince me of it. Right? Because I know they're lying. Now, if you let them convince you of it, that's on you. Nobody can make those choices but you, right? So, and there are places like, and I get it, right? Parents sticking up for CRT. It's the only thing in the news. It took CRT to get parents to stand up. Meanwhile, for the past 2 years minimum, they have been teaching second graders sex education in schools across the country. They have started teaching 1619 history classes, which changes the history of our country.
Yeah.
Right? So, but it took critical race theory to get these parents to stand up and say no. Now,
I don't
that's
think
a
it was
push
just
point.
that.
Right, but nobody paid attention when they changed the history lessons. Nobody paid attention when they
Right.
changed how young they were introducing these children to different things, until it got so bad and so blatant. Because the CRT is definitely blatant, right? I mean, it's blatant hate. So until it got to blatant hate, most parents did not care to look at what a school board was doing.
That's true.
As long as it didn't injure their child.
Yeah, as long as their kid wasn't coming home beat up every day, they didn't care.
They didn't care.
They weren't paying attention. They were very trusting. It's not that they didn't care.
Yeah,
It's that they
the wrong way of
trusted
saying
the
that.
system.
They trusted the system.
So I will
That's
withdraw
true.
that.
That is
It's
very
not
true.
that they didn't care.
I'm getting
It's that they trusted the system. You look glorious in Old Glory.
Thank you. But what I'm seeing right now is the fight against the control. New York City yesterday. Did you see that? That had to have been at least 20,000 people marching the Brooklyn Bridge. That And
Cool, wasn't
that's
it?
all they did. Nothing violent. I didn't watch the end of it. Hopefully it didn't turn violent, but it didn't look violent when I saw it. And but that's what I'm saying. Those were frontline workers. Those were teachers. Those were everybody joined together
Enough.
fighting this whole. I see too much of it. Even who would have thought a year ago at a sporting event people would be joined together, I don't care what side you're on, chanting the same thing.
Yeah.
No way would we have
Amazing.
thought that.
But it saddens me that it's taken this severe of a turn down for people to come together. We,
Yes.
as a species, have a really, and it's just where we are as a society today. Americans, for sure, have just gotten complacent.
But look what happened. You
we've
know why
gotten
that
comfortable.
is?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too. But the reason people are not stepping up more and doing more is because of January. I mean, that just, it showed you.
They are always going to use fear. They're going to always use
Mhm.
persecution and fear.
I don't
And it
know if
doesn't
it's
matter.
fear.
Huh?
I don't know if it's fear. I think it's more, I guess it would be a fear because you're like walking on eggshells because you don't want a 3-letter agency beating on your door and dragging
You
you
don't
out.
want to lose your job because somebody saw you there. You don't want to be harassed and harangued.
Right.
You don't want to be put in jail and held indefinitely because Obama
'cause-
said that they could do that anytime they wanted to.
You made a simple little comment on YouTube or Facebook or whatever social platform.
Fear and coercion has always been part of their game.
Yep.
Always.
True.
And they took a few good people and they did those really bad things by holding them in jail. For how long? Without any kind of charges. They did that to those people on purpose, and they could. Because that's the state we've gotten into, and nobody bitched about it because it didn't affect them.
Obama law I passed.
Only affects bad people who do bad things. But that's not true. It affects whoever the hell they want it to affect, and they're going to tell you that all the people it affects are bad people. So we have to stop letting these guys brainwash us. It's difficult. We're finally coming to a point now where people will hear you when you say, can't you see what they're doing to you? Can't you see how they're using this against you? I will almost guarantee, and although I don't have any recollection of living in the 1770s, I would almost guarantee the same and similar things were happening historically in this country before it was a country. And I say that because look what the settlers did to the natives. But what was the king's men then doing to the settlers? They were taking over their houses, eating all their food, raping their children. They didn't give a crap, and they could get away with it because the king said they could. And that's when people finally had enough. Then the taxes. When you think back, this has always been their plan. Fear, and when fear fails, coercion. Because if they can plant but a kernel of fear, then coercion won't be an issue at all. And look what they've done. Riots, sickness, hatred of your neighbors. The tell on your neighbors, call the hotline. All that stuff. Or the harming of our children. That's another scare tactic. All these things that they do, they have done repeatedly, over and over again to us. And if we cannot start looking at history objectively and seeing how they have controlled populations through the same manners over and over again, we're never going to be able to break the cycle. And I think it is paramount that we break the cycle this time, that we wake the hell up and that we break loose from the controllers. And I really feel that way. I believe it, LHS. I really do. And it's unfortunate. The thing about a prison state too, that I don't know if a lot of people here understand, because I didn't understand it until I had to experience some things that put me in connection with the different rules and laws and regulations of certain things. But when people go to jail, they're the ward of the state. When people go to prison, they're the ward of the state. And as a ward of the state, you're basically an orphan. You have no rights whatsoever. There's actually, and somebody's going to have to look this up because I don't know where to find it, but there is actually a rule of law that states in times of war or martial law, they can execute all the prisoners just so they don't have to worry about housing and feeding them. Did you guys know that? That came out in 9/11, but it's been a law for a very long time.
Yep.
They just
So,
don't push it.
It's
but
just
there.
not widely spoken of.
Yeah. Give you another good one. Nobody in Ohio knew. This is how a law was passed when windshield wiper blades were put onto the vehicles in the state of Ohio. If you have your windshield wipers on, you have to have your headlights on. But they don't push it in Ohio. But it's a law.
So if somebody's having a bad day and they wanted to get you on it, they could.
Yeah. So they wanted to, they could, yes.
It's like most laws in our land. They're all objective. They're all first person point of view. And it does rely much on the interpretation of whatever officer has pulled you over.
That's another one too,
And
yes.
so therein lies another problem with the system, because certain things should, yes, be interpretive, and other things probably, perhaps, maybe not as much so. So
yeah, it's a plus and minus thing on that. It's
all these things, though, are just another vehicle. It's just another tool in their toolbox to make you fear getting busted and having to pay a seatbelt ticket, because who can afford that right now, right? That's a fear. That's a form of coercion. That's a form of fear. And yes, that sounds like a little pissy, tiny little example to give, but I'm asking you to look at the bigger picture. Each and every one of these tiny little laws and mandates and orders, all of it is their form of fear mongering and their form of coercion, and they get you right where they want you. And now they're going to get you, you know? Yeah, love. Yeah, absolutely. Love pugs. And you didn't know that. Yeah, that surfaced briefly right after 9/11 as a concern among many inmate populations across the nation. And then it was quietly and quickly swept back under the rug so nobody would see that that's what it was. When people talk about being mad about these January 6th things, do you think maybe that might be to uncover to the common folk that people that are in these situations that may have made mistakes or just been in the wrong place at the wrong time? Not saying there aren't bad people in jail, because there are, but there are good people in jail too. So here's what I'm going to say. When they're put in there, they are quite literally slave trade, period. Right? It's not saying that they're trading them with other countries or any of that, all right? By law, they are slaves. Once they're in the system, they're slaves. And so a lot of people don't realize that that is a standing law in the United States, across the United States, the execution of prisoners in a time of war, or in a time of martial law. And like I said, the last time I saw that thing poke its head up and I learned about it was right after 9/11, literally like 2 days after. And then it disappeared quickly and quietly. Just disappeared. Nobody talked about it anymore. You weren't allowed to talk about it. It wasn't covered in the newspapers. If anybody here was around in that time frame, maybe you will remember that the day following that day, there were all sorts of newspaper and magazine articles put out about the Bush's oil connections in certain countries that were related to the passports that were found in a certain plane in Pennsylvania, supposedly, right?
Wow.
So the connections were all there. And then the next day after that, there was not a peep, not one single peep further mentioned about that information. So they told everybody the truth while the world was in chaos, so nobody would see it because they're too busy mourning. And then they quickly hid it back away.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was doing. I was watching the evacuations, all the ships coming in, getting the people off the island. I was watching the cleanup, and it was horrible. It was, I mean, and I was like, I'm sure almost every other American pissed. Get them suckers, you know? And they came out with the songs, and it was made into a, you know, so was it planned for us to be united in that way? And then that makes me even madder.
Well, and it should
Use
make
our
you mad.
patriotism
It
against
should
it.
very much. See, now, I read somewhere a long time ago, and I have not, I have no concrete evidence of this. I stopped looking into it. I will admit that, but I'm picking that piece of thread, that particular piece of thread, back up again. But I remember hearing once, long ago, that Christ's real birthday was September 11th.
Yeah, I've heard that.
In other,
Okay, so why would they create such a massacre on said day?
yeah,
Were they perhaps trying to further demonize and horrify an entire nation? Think about
But how
that for
many
a second.
people did know that?
Yeah, and how many of them are still alive?
It's like the space shuttle. I mean,
So that leads me to question, because now, whenever you think of that day, there is no pleasant thought to follow that day. Most people, when you think of that date, the first thing that pops in your mind is terror and loss, not unity, right? Not the fact that we were all the same color on that day. Everyone was covered with ash. There was no color. And to put a note real quick on what was it K9 or Mutt had said? I think Mutt said it. Escaped prisoners and runners who are on bond have no rights. You are less than human. Let's straighten this out real quick, because I just want to clarify something. The word slave does not connotate a color of skin or a geographical location. The word slave connotates less than human, less than rights of human.
Yes.
Okay? That's what the word slave actually connotates. It means you don't have as much rights as the person who owns you, because you're not a human. You're not a gift from God if they're calling you a slave. This is the demoralizing, dehumanizing things that they put people through, in those circumstances. And a lot of people don't realize any of that. And why would they? They've not got a cause to. unless they have a loved one that's been locked up or have been locked up themselves or know somebody, you know, a good friend or something. They'll never know a lot of those things unless they're put into a situation to have that information carried to them. But
And this is where it's our job as mothers, wives, whatever you are, to build the men and women in your family back to where those names, those labels, those whatever they try to throw at you bounces right off.
Yep.
Where
And this
do not
truly
feel
is
less
what we
than
need to teach.
anyone else.
Yeah.
Do what?
And LHS, she said that too. It started with how people started treating Muslims different. It's no different than after Pearl Harbor. They started treating the Japanese different. The people don't represent the government. The government is supposed to represent the people, but does not. So until we, as a society of human beings, collectively can understand that the people of any culture are not responsible for the government of said culture. Right, Anna? I have Irish ancestors and Native American ancestors. And I had ancestors that were slaves. And this was originally, by the way, in case none of you know, this was not simply found and then settled by some lovely people who just wanted to escape their country's tyranny for their religious freedom. That is a lie. America was originally a penal institution for England. Yes. America was a penal colony, just like Australia. And there was a time in America's history when you could get top dollar for an African slave, and you could only pay 5 cents for an Irish slave. And if you mated them, you could sell the babies for twice that, the highest price. And that's what people did. Like they weren't human beings, like they were slaves. So when we talk about slaves, I want to be quite frank and open in my speech about slaves, because it was not one group of peoples that were enslaved. And it was not one group of people doing the enslaving either.
Right.
And that is a very, very bad, cancerous spot on our history. Not as a country, but literally as a society. This was happening all over the world.
I was going to say the world. Look at the schools in Canada and what they're finding. You know, it's
the Irish orphanages were just as bad. They were killing babies and stuff in the Irish orphanages too, taking them there. Listen, you guys, if you haven't checked out that 5-hour documentary, it talks about the orphan trains. It talks about the orphanages. It talks about the world fairs. All of these things that we discuss are connected. These are all connected. Everything we're talking about here that's going on right now in today's society has already taken place in our past. They have already reset us. Now, I want to say this, and I want to point this out to you. If you haven't watched that movie, just watch it with an open mind. Glean what you can from it and leave the rest. Okay? I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. No. Yes, it says lost history of flat Earth, but it very, very basically touches on a flat Earth theory. It doesn't even go into it that deep. I'm more interested in the other historical documentation that is there and how that ties together with what they've done to us in the past and what they are doing now with all the immigrants and all the children coming in. Reminds me of those orphanages, those residential orphanages, those nunneries, the vilifying of single unwed mothers so they could take their children. These orphan trains that traveled everywhere in the world at the same point in time. I don't care about the shape of the earth. I'm just letting you guys know what the title of it is not as important as the information documented inside of this documentary. All right. It's not about round or flat. That's not even what I'm talking about. I am talking about a historical reset in our recent history of an advanced human species all over the world that was taken away from us and hidden. Okay? I'm not going to argue flat or round or smush or bowl or disc or any of that. I don't want to argue with you. I'm just saying that documentary has that name, and it has a lot of really very well documented historical things in it that will uncover other things for you. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay?
Yeah.
You sometimes you're going to have to disregard the name to get the information.
Right. We're stuck on this planet no matter what shape it is.
Exactly. We live here. It's fine. Sure, I'd like to know someday, but I don't think NASA's ever telling me the truth. They lie about everything. So does the government. They lie about everything. Why would I trust them? I don't.
Didn't they just ban NASA or get rid of it?
No, it still exists.
No.
But it's privately owned now.
Right. Probably by the same German engineers' bloodlines that they brought over from Nazi Germany to start NASA.
Oh, Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. Did you watch it then? Wonderful.
I came up to clarify what I meant about that. The law that states that runners or escaped cons have no rights started in 1870, and it was passed by the federal government.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to take away from your remark, but I wanted to clearly define what, so people could understand, because a lot of people don't know that stuff much. Love Pug, she used to be a corrections officer, and I know you used to be a bounty hunter. So, I mean, there are things that you knew working outside of that structure that she didn't know working inside of that structure.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And these are the things that we're talking about. Things are hidden from you in plain sight, and you don't even know they're there.
Yep.
And that's for each and every one of us, and it's different things. I did
need to correct one small thing you said. You are not seen as as when you're in jail. There's a difference between jail and prison. Now, when you go to prison, yes, you have zero. You're basically a slave to the state. But if you're in jail for less than 30 days, that is not the case. You're still classified as a citizen. You're just serving
for less than 30 days.
30 days or less.
So okay. Cool. All right. So what about people who sit in jail and await their trials, and they're there for over 30 days because they can't get a speedy trial, because even though that is their right, it cannot be done due to court junctions and all this stuff and that. Those people, all I'm going to say is this, Mutt. I understand. I understand what you're saying, and I understand the lines that the law draws, but I also understand from firsthand experience that is not the case.
Well, I will say that most of them that are sitting there waiting for their trials are also paying to sit there. So the state is making money on their prisoners while they sit there. They're charging them upwards, in some cases, to when I was bounty hunting, it was basically about $3 a day. The prisoner is paying to be in jail.
That's
fun.
Not right.
And wait till you get a number, because then you are just a number.
Yep.
And that's really what we were basically discussing, is because it's the same slave system. It is still quite active, and nobody even realizes it.
Yep.
It is the same slave system that was in place that everybody bitches about, that all this critical race theory is crapping about, and all these different things, right? And is anybody even looking at the fact that we still have it in use? Right? I would agree that there are some very, very bad people behind bars that probably should be there. But I also think there are many, many good people who could be rehabilitated, that may have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. made a stupid mistake.
That's if prison
Broke
was
a law
about
they wasn't
rehabilitation.
aware was a law, things like that. There are a lot of people incarcerated because it is a money system. It makes them money.
Exactly.
Recidivism keeps us as a slave nation. We are quite literally a slave nation with a revolving door. And it just depends on where you find yourself on what side of the door.
Well, due to some things that have happened in my life, I've been on both sides of that door. And I can attest to many things that you were talking about now.
Yeah.
So we aren't in disagreement at all.
Oh, no.
No, you're right. Right.
But people don't understand if they haven't had like a loved one or somebody close to them, or many people do not understand anything at all about the penal system. And so all they see is what mainstream media puts out about a person, how that mainstream media language colors the person, and then the entire community shuns the person. Their reputation gets ruined in their community. Depending on however the trial or whatever works out, they could be shunned for life, or at least find themselves having to relocate to another community because they'll never be looked at the same in their own. So these are things that nobody thinks about. They say, oh, the news said that person was suspected of, I bet they did it. Yep, that's a bad person.
Yeah,
That's a bad person.
Does.
News said so. The news said so.
They find the worst picture that makes you look the craziest that you can, as crazy as you can look.
They run a smear campaign. It's a smear campaign.
And what kills me is...
But people don't realize that that's what's happening. They don't realize that they're being fooled into thinking that all these people are bad, so all these people can go serve whatever sentence to be slaves for a while.
And
they don't realize.
And the states are very, very good at manipulating people. Did you know that in the state of Virginia, that unless you have at least $2 in your pocket at all times, they can technically pick you up if you're just walking down the street for vagrancy?
You know what, Mutt? It's very interesting you brought that up, because I believe that is a low-key law in almost every state about having cash in your pocket or being a vagrant.
I wasn't sure if it was every state. I knew it was in Virginia. I've seen guys pick up
how to. And our dad taught both me and my brother, always have money in your wallet. Don't spend it. Yep. You'll understand later on.
Yeah, always have change in your pocket. Always have something.
Then before he died, he told us, because I did finally ask him, like, why do you always want us to carry money? He's like, because if you get pulled over, you're not being vagrant. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he dropped it. So then I had to go find out what. I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe they can do that,
Yeah, love bugs. Even if you got a nickel in your pocket, you have money.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yep. And I just saw somebody say 3 times caught with marijuana, life sentence. And
it's like that in a lot of states.
Yeah.
A lot of states have those laws. They're called repeat offender laws. And what they do is they put in 85. So they'll sentence a person like according to certain guidelines, right? And they'll say, well, you are a repeat offender, so you fall under this. Yes. So then we can give you a life sentence in prison with no possibility of parole. They've been trying to eke out parole boards for a while now. And the reason they're doing that is because parole boards really only have jobs from lifers now. And also none of those people will probably ever come out of prison, because the parole boards know that they have tenure so long as that person is still alive and a number.
But yet, a man in our county committed murder, was caught trying to set the body on fire, had the gasoline on it. And so this went to court, guilty, put him in prison. 5 years later, he was in one of our local restaurants. 5 years.
That's because it's a system. And he
Here's-
probably knew where the loopholes were located.
Here's the thing that always has gotten to me. I had a particular bond that I picked up. He tried to run. He was wanted for assault and battery, first-degree murder, and animal abuse. He got more time for the animal abuse than he did for the first-degree murder charge.
Yes.
And see, that's the sickness of the system right there.
Yeah.
That therein lies the crux, part of the crux of my problem, because
He got
these
more
laws
time.
are written specifically with loopholes. And if you are trying to do the right thing, you're not going to see the loopholes. But if you're just scapegoating out of shit, your lawyer will find you every loophole there is.
Oh yeah.
And it's crap. It's bullshit. They catch first-time offenders under repeater laws, which isn't supposed to happen. But the way the laws run, they can do it, and they do it. And they do it in a lot of places. And that's where I have a problem with the system.
I know a guy
And-
sitting
and
in
the
jail
fact
right
that-
now.
We have separated, and I remember as a child, part of the DARE program, it was a good program. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking DARE, okay? I loved DARE. I was a big, huge proponent and participant in the DARE program. But it helped to show kids of that generation that if people were in jail, they were really bad people, right? We were all taught that growing up. What we were not taught is that the system is construed to create bad people where there aren't any, and to keep chaos in society where there isn't, right? Just like 5 years later, and he all he had to do was light the match. Come on, man. Who gets away with 5 years for some stupid shit like that? Was he in Camden, New Jersey? Because that's the only place I know of where they say, you could get away with that. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard, because I heard it's a really bad place. But anyway.
When my kids, have you heard of Head Start?
Yes.
Yeah.
My kids were in Head Start. We had some kids that were taught to shoplift, and they knew to stick things in their socks, and they knew where to hide them, where they would try not to get caught. These are 3 and 4-year-old kids. This is before kindergarten. One of our field trips was to the county jail to show them this is where you go when you do these things.
Scared straight.
Yeah. And while I do think that there is really good things that have come from a lot of those programs, okay, I'm not knocking the programs, but the fact those programs have to be in place because we cannot teach our children that people are redeemable. We rather have to teach them that they are bad people for life, is bullshit, right?
Yes.
Because we're not teaching our children to see that, yes, there are people that are redeemable and probably belong where they are, but there are also good people who do not belong there. And that we cannot judge every person by a number or a record or by the clothes they wear, or we can't judge people. It's not our place. And part of how we teach our children, according to this manner, is to judge people, right? That if they have one black mark, they're bad people. That's what we teach our kids from a very young age. If they went to jail, they were there for a reason. They must be bad people.
Yeah.
And
But
I just
yeah.
want to point out that that's not entirely correct.
But look at the cities. Look what's been happening for the past year and a half.
That's a setup too. You
Yes.
get gangbangers on record talking about how
Yeah.
government agencies drop off pallets of unmarked guns
Yep.
with ammunition direct into the city to start gang wars.
Yes.
What would they
The
do if these
pallets of
gangs came
bullets.
together and said, let's straighten up our city and just, why don't we
Wouldn't that
just
be
take
a
over our
flip of a
city
switch?
and
Heather?
straighten it up?
Heather, that's in the
Wouldn't that be
process of
beautiful?
happening.
That's
What's
what.
that?
That's awesome.
The gangs are actually starting to put aside their beefs.
Oh, so you mean that thing that Trump enacted is working?
There's a thing called SEGA, the Southeastern Gangsters Association.
Oh, okay.
Sega.
Yeah,
SEGA,
right.
Southeastern Gangsters.
Sorry, I had to.
No, it's okay.
I never heard of it.
I know members of SEGA personally,
Cool.
Excuse
and
me.
they're putting aside their beefs because they're taking a look at what the government's doing, and they're realizing, wait a minute,
Yeah.
we don't need to beef with each other. We got all the crooks in DC.
Exactly. And that's a wonderful thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Mutt. That's how we pull together in
A
the
lot
most
of the motorcycle
unlikely of
clubs.
places, right?
A lot of the motorcycle clubs are starting to put their beefs aside.
Yeah.
Time to
So-
get our country back.
So
And
maybe
that's what it
maybe
takes.
Mr. Brandon will indeed be a unifier through common disgust and disrespect and mutual I don't want to use the word hate, but I think probably most people do.
I don't use that word lightly,
I don't either.
but there, and this is hard for me to say as an Irishman, but there is a potato that I absolutely hate.
Oh my goodness, that was great, Mike. That was
There is a
great because I
potato
always
I
say that
absolutely
too.
hate.
Oh, my Amish or my Irish is up. I'm ready to have some taters and kraut, cabbage. Mm.
But remember back in the day when bikers were considered so bad?
Oh yeah,
Oh, I know. And they were
And
so
they are-
unified.
all of that was just brainwashing.
Yes,
No, some
because
of them were really that bad.
well, yeah, but most of them will step up and be there for you.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I know a lot of them
You know what they-
that are in Baca. Have you heard of that?
I know. I've got brothers that actually two of my brothers ride with Baca.
Okay.
Bikers Against Child Abuse.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Two of my actual brothers are full-fledged patch members for two different clubs, which I won't mention,
Good for
but they're
them.
both members of Baca.
And the bikers were the first ones to go to DC
Yep.
and protest all this mess.
Do you know what they were teaching us when they were teaching us that biker gangs were bad? They were
They're not
teaching
gangs.
us to paint everybody with the same brush.
They're not gangs. They're clubs. That's a
I
misnomer.
listen.
Wow.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm telling it. I'm saying it that way for a reason
I know.
because that is part of what they used as your indoctrination process. They
Oh, I know.
changed a word,
Yep.
right? This group
Club
of
to a
people
gang. Yep.
is bad.
Yep.
Anybody that belongs in this group of people is bad. That's not true. But how many people didn't know that because they didn't know anybody that rode a bike,
Now I know that a
right?
lot of y'all
They
have
didn't know
seen
anybody that belonged in the club. They didn't know that, so they just believed what they were told.
No.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, I hung out with the Banditos because they told me your house will always be protected.
Yep.
And because they lived like two houses down, I knew nobody was going to mess with us. We were in a bad part of town because they were right there.
I had 30.
I got two cousins, two uncles, and a stepdad who were all bikers. So
Yeah, I've got two
I got nothing
mother-
against
brothers and several cousins that are bikers. So yeah, for
Yeah.
two different clubs. And
Yeah,
when my
and-
daughter
and-
at 10 years old ran away from home because she was mad, we had 5 clubs out looking for my daughter.
Wow.
wow,
Oh, wow.
When
that's
I pulled
community. That's not a club. That's community.
when I pulled
Yeah.
up when I pulled up and I had 30 guys with me
Come on, Bubba.
at my ex-wife's house when they finally found her. My daughter's eyes got as big around as saucers, and she's like, "All of these people were looking for me." I'm like, "Yeah." I go, and here's the really, really, really scary thing, Michaela. It only took me 20 minutes to get all these people to look for you.
Yeah.
It don't take long.
No.
So yeah, I mean, there is a sense of community, even amongst. I'm gonna use an old phrase. There is honor among thieves upon occasion.
Well, my mother
Yes,
must have been
you're absolutely right on that.
my mother must have been butting the system a long time ago because she's had a motorcycle since she was 15. She's 81. She still has one. It's a Spider now with 3 wheels, but
That's right.
she's still got it.
One of my buddies is 80. He's 80. He just turned 86 like last week.
Yeah.
Wow.
He just stopped racing 6 years ago. His last race was on his 80th birthday.
That's great.
That's cool.
He actually was at one point. He was the national and state president for a group called the Southern Riders. You can actually look them up. And yeah, Loser still rides, but he doesn't race anymore. And he's like I said, he's like 85, 86 now.
Once
Right
a
on,
year, once a year we have a I don't know what you'd call it. It's called the pig roast, and it's bikers, all bikers. They come from all over the place, like a mini Sturgis maybe. But all of the money raised from that goes to a home that's up north of here, and they get computers. They make sure they get Christmas presents.
Yep.
The weekend
That's
after
awesome.
Thanksgiving is when we do the toy run, is what
Yep.
they call it.
They call it a toy run. You sure do.
And everybody goes up there and delivers all this stuff to those kids, and it is just amazing.
There's
And-
almost
and
not a weekend.
Can I
that
just
doesn't
make
get-
one
Go ahead.
one observation real quick? Is that do you see how the people in these clubs took back what their clubs meant? How they stood up and showed the world that they weren't
What they were being
what they
portrayed
were
as.
being demonized
Yeah.
as. Do you see
Yeah.
how these people took back their symbology? We all have to start doing that. We all have to start showing by our works and taking back what they keep taking from us. We have to. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, it's true.
Just an observation. Because the biker clubs got together and said, we're not gangs. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Let me show you. And they did. And they have been for a long time. And it hasn't been until probably the last 10, possibly 20 years that some of the stigma has died down.
Now, don't get me wrong.
Think
Some of
about
these guys are still as dirty as you think they are.
Well, that's
You're
But
going to have
that's-
good and bad
that's
in
who
any
they
group,
are.
but
Yeah,
you
and
can't
I was going to say
paint the
that's
whole
who
group
they
with the
are.
same brush.
I mean, the ones I know, they're truly good people, but you don't want to make them mad
Nope. Nope. Nope.
because you have no chance.
I have, like I said, I have brothers in two different clubs, and then I have brothers who are not brothers by adoption or by birth, but are still my brothers that are in like 3 or 4 other clubs. So I'm well immersed in so yeah, I get what you're saying. The camaraderie has definitely increased.
Yep. Did they freeze up?
I don't know.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's stretching out.
My girls
We
are
are-
here. I'm gonna
All
jump.
right. I was going to say, we're going to wrap it up anyway.
Yeah,
it's almost 4:30. Thank you,
It
both
is.
of you, for the wonderful conversation
Yeah,
today.
great.
And thank you for everyone in chat.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for bearing with
And
me as I was
everyone else
stumbling through what I was
for
trying to
joining
get out
us.
today.
I promise one of these days I won't come up. I'll stay down in the chat.
You're fine, bud. You're fine.
We don't mind.
You're fine. We love you all. I'm not even going to do final thoughts today. I've got to get dinner on the stove. So we love you.
Yeah.
Love and light. And
Love
we will
all of
see you
y'all in
all
chat.
around.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Alrighty,
You
bye bye.
too. Bye bye.
Bye.